to Bitstall, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Ben Slinger, and with me, as always, is Trevor Scott.
Hello. I've got that weird voice again. Hang on.
You sound a bit stuffed up.
Yeah,
a bit congested.
I'm feeling a little bit better now, and my hair's growing really long now. We really should take some more photos for the episodes.
Yeah, it's true. We don't look much like the cover art particularly anymore.
Yeah, I don't have short hair anymore. I've got like shoulder length hair, and Ben's
nearly as long as mine.
Really. But my beard's better.
Yeah, Trevor does have a better beard. Can't find a better beard. So what are we doing this week, Trev?
We're going to do some more reviews because they're always fun, and that's what I plugged on the episode that hasn't come out yet of Zack and Miri on Comedy Rewind with John O'Peck.
Right. Trevor was recently on Comedy Rewind, or will soon be on Comedy Rewind, depending on the release date of that. So look out for him over there. That's always a fun time.
So we'll continue with our review series of dumpster diving into the bowels of Steam and the darknet equivalent.
Yeah, the dark web of Steam games.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go first. I'm going to jump right in because I know we both have been really enjoying Scooby-Doo and the Burger from Hell.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that burger, it looks so appetizing, and it's rendered so well.
Well, and it's just perfect for, Scooby and Shaggy, always looking for big sandwiches, looking for food, always having the munchies. So I liked how they started that off, like it kicked it off at the end of a case, and they just pulled the mask off of old man shenanigans.
Yeah,
and Shaggy's just like, well, time for this. That's my Shaggy, apparently.
It's your Shaggy. It's almost a perfect impression.
Zoinks! Zoinks! Time for I can't do it. Fucking Shaggy. And I do like that they got Matthew Lillard in to do Shaggy, though.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It seemed appropriate. But it's the end of that case. They go for a burger, and it basically attacks them, and then it kicks off the whole thing and goes into the theme song.
It goes into the theme song, which was amazing, that it was like Scooby-Dooby-Doo, but it was fully rendered in 3D. Like they'd spent dollars. Like, What was even the last licensed Scooby-Doo game before this? It's been generations of consoles. I think I can't even name on one hand like how many Scooby-Doo games there are out there.
There's got to have been one on the Super NES.
Probably.
Maybe the 3DO. Probably.
But what I loved was it was fully rendered in 3D. And it wasn't that weird sort of, oh look, it doesn't feel like Scooby-Doo, and it's really blocky, and they're not talking right, like a certain Futurama game or a Family Guy game. But no, this was just beautifully rendered.
Well, I think they've really showed that they have kind of almost solved that 2D looking 3D now, so that they can make the animations and make the shaders really look like the show.
And cell shading was a great choice for this as well, because they don't have to go too realistic with the shadows and stuff. And
and of course it makes perfect sense for the cartoon.
Yeah, I'm not sure what engine they did this in. I couldn't quite work it out, but it certainly looked pretty enough. And I did like the fact that everyone in the Mystery Machine was here and present, and that you could legitimately actually go drive the Mystery Machine around.
Well, that's it. So we should talk about some of the gameplay elements, and I liked that they sort of used the different characters to bring in different gameplay elements. So when you're playing as Fred, that's usually you're driving stuff, because he's usually driving the Mystery Machine. You've got Velma with some more kind of investigative kind of stuff, a bit more stealth and like searching for clues and that sort of thing.
Yep, Daphne with all the flirting stuff. Yep.
Well, and just a lot more. You've got some sort
conversational
puzzles.
I called it the flirting mechanic because it just felt like she was just flirting with everyone she was talking to.
I mean, it's seduction.
Yeah.
And then the actiony sort of stuff, obviously.
Yeah, of the Shaggy and Scooby.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I would have liked to have been able to control Shaggy rather than Scooby.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice to sort of just have Shaggy as your companion during those sections.
Yeah. But I suppose they did, you know, the game is called Scooby-Doo. It's not called Shaggy. So if you're going to choose anyone to control, then obviously you want to control the main character. And that's why the majority of the game was you running away from danger.
Yeah. But I like that they blended in some, you know, somewhat traditional style platform stuff. It almost felt a bit like Crash Bandicoot-ish or that sort of thing, with the running in and out of the screen. Yeah,
your Banjo-Kazooie sort of stuff with a few collectathon stuff as you go through the levels. But
collecting your Scooby snacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But it worked really well. And I mean, it's on brand, it's on theme. Like, that's what Scooby and Shaggy do, is they fucking run away. I do like how they brought in that really messed up level. Because, and for the audience at home, they, you know, in the show, they'll have those scenes where Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, like, they'll go in one door on one side and then, like, come out the other in the background and then come over here. Playing that from the perspective of Scooby.
It messes with your brain.
It messes with your head.
Yeah. Like, I swear, if I go into one angle, because it's in third person view most of the time, you could actually, you know, situate the camera so that you could actually see the door's open. You can see yourself in the other in the other
they were
room
effectively
going out
using portals in that way,
like
sort of in a similar way to how Psychonauts 2 did some cool stuff with you know, really messing around with your idea of physical space. But they just used it in this section. It was really quite cool.
I must admit, I wasn't expecting, like, Velma, Fred, and Daphne to get kidnapped, and that, you know, the crux of the game would actually be Shaggy and Scoob having to step up and be brave, and after spending the first half of the game running away from danger, like, that's actually step up to it.
What I thought was really cool, though, how then, you know, you spent that first half of the game going between the different characters, their different play styles, but then in that you know, most of the second half of the game, Scooby and Shaggy were essentially having to try to emulate those play styles. So you're having to do the investigation stuff. You had literally Scooby driving the mystery machine.
I was about to mention, it was one of my favorite things,
great sequence,
because you know, the paws just on the wheel and try to drive around, and the amount of times I crashed into trees
person as well. And that you could, you look over and you see Shaggy in the seat next to you, just like holding on for dear life.
At one stage, if you hit too many trees, Shaggy actually jumps up and his hand goes across Scooby's eyes, so his hand's across the screen to make it even worse.
That was a nice little touch. They did a really good job of, you know, like the whole magical doors thing of bringing the element, what you know and love from the cartoons, into this game experience,
but just
and from a different perspective.
Towards the end, when Shaggy throws the Scooby snack to Scooby, and all of a sudden it's like Scooby leveled up, and all of a sudden his smell, you know, he could actually start using smell to do investigative stuff, and there was, you know, that whole scene of, you know, going down deep into the labyrinth trying to find the burger. Yeah. And then Shaggy, when you got down far enough, he actually started going, oh, I can smell it too. And it was sort of like this, like, oh my God, we are actually going in the right direction. We haven't just gone on a wild goose chase like what happened earlier in the game. And
yeah, that was a nice kind of affirming moment there.
Again, I don't see why they had to use the same villain from the very start of the game as the Burger from Hell. Like, Mr. Shenanigan or whatever his name was.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice. I mean, I guess it kind of made it a bit of a callback to that case.
But I did happen to read that they do, like, if you read all the notes and if you turn on all the radios, you actually hear all the radio reports of what's actually been happening in the background, that, you know, he actually escaped from police custody and you know, had not been seen, and, you know, there were a number of people that were actually murdered and all this sort of stuff. And
yeah, I think they justified it well enough. And, you know, bringing it back to the fact that, you know, you'd originally solved the case to the haunting of his restaurant, and I mean that kind of made sense then, that, like, oh, it's all this like he's just trying to gain publicity for his restaurant, making it seem like it's haunted. So yeah, like, I think they justified it. They justified it well enough.
Yeah. I found it weird that they did actually include some bad endings in case you didn't actually, you know, solve the mystery in time. I thought that was a bit weird. Like, it was sort of like one of these Mass Effect 2 sort of things that when you get to the final thing, if you didn't do enough of the, you know, side missions as well with Fred, Velma, and Daphne, you could actually lose one or all of them.
Yeah, that you could get to the end without actually having saved the three others. I thought was definitely. I mean,
it was a bold move.
it was just a lot of work for them to do that. Like, they could have just made it a fairly linear thing, but, like, I think they seem to even have custom endings depending on which combination.
Yeah.
Had been found, so that is pretty impressive.
But then again, seeing in that ending where Fred died, seeing then, you know, Scooby-Doo with like the cravat and all that sort of stuff, you know, sort of in that collared shirt and driving the mystery machine, leaving, you know, it was kind of funny because it reminded me of that level.
Of course, yeah. I mean, they couldn't resist putting the humor in there.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this game 8 Scooby snacks.
Yeah, look, I think I'll give it 7 layers of a giant sandwich.
No, awesome.
Yeah.
I suppose I should get my next one. Oh, keeping with the dog theme, Atomic Puppy Bastards.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed this one, actually.
And it's spelt bastards as in, you know, like Inglourious Bastards, because it was, you know...
Yeah, sort of, well, I mean, it had
very
that
Tarantino.
World War II setting as well.
Yeah, and it was actually about, you know, the... Well, it's in this puppy world where these scientists are actually, you know, developing nuclear technology for the first time. And it's basically, you know, the Manhattan Project and all this sort of stuff, but it's with adorable puppies.
Yeah. Interesting subject matter to take into the sort of realm of adorable puppies, but I think what they did well is that they just took themselves seriously. This was, the puppies are ridiculously cute, and the fur render was incredible.
Amazing, yeah.
All the different types of fur as well. But they kind of just treat it straight-faced, and no, this is a serious story about, you know, war and technology and atomic weapons.
And it kind of felt like they were going to go down that whole route of, oh my God, are we going to actually be, you know, dropping bombs on, you know, Hiroshima and all this sort of stuff? And it's like, no, they kind of went in an otherworldly sort of thing that, you know, they did end up attacking Germany and all this sort of stuff. And then, I mean, the Mecha Hitler, that was crazy. All that sort of stuff. And it turned into like a Metal Gear game for a little while there.
Yeah, they definitely took it into that alternate history sort of direction.
I mean, it wasn't alternate
dogs
enough
aside.
Yeah.
Dogs aside. I'm not sure. I would have liked to see a bit more of, like, actually saying, like, okay, if it was history, but dogs, like how would that specific change of it being dogs have altered history? It was more just, again, like I said, kind of almost not even acknowledging that they were dogs, but having all these different breeds, and you know, having the Germans all be like Dobermans and stuff.
Dobermans, yep, and German Shepherds, yeah.
And German Shepherds, like, I mean, it made sense. It felt a little bit on the nose. It was, you know, I mean, for the Nazis, it made sense because
although it was
like,
really
you're not
funny.
typecasting anyone there.
It was really funny seeing a Schnauzer as like Hitler, like just this tiny little dog. You know?
Yes,
it was
I mean, I think that was
hilarious.
perfect.
Like,
I think that was a perfect choice. Yeah, sort of making him this diminutive little pup.
yeah, and it looked really funny having that little mustache on this tiny little dog as well. Like, and I did like the fact that you knew that it was Germans, but they didn't go too far into the Nazism, you know, putting all the flags and all that sort of stuff up there everywhere. They kind of just, they're like, you know what's going on. You don't need to glorify this or anything like that.
Yeah. I think that was good. You're kind of almost on the sidelines of a lot of that.
Yeah.
And focusing a bit more on the scientists, which was interesting, getting some of their point of view.
I thought the way that they split up the chapters, and you know, you do some in the future, some in the past, very very Tarantino like that. You know, a character that died in the previous chapter is all of a sudden alive in this chapter, and it's because, you know, it's talking about, you know, what they actually did to help, you know, bring this further forward. I thought that was very good, and also the fact that they must have had some sort of line to Quentin Tarantino, because the music choices were spectacular.
They were definitely, you know, channeling Tarantino in there in some of those scenes. You know, they weren't direct rip-offs of the Glorious Bastards, but just that, very much that tone, which is impressive when you're talking about a game full of fucking dogs.
Yeah.
Like,
and
the scene with that pug.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what you're going to say too? The scene with the pug, like, and the big speech that he gave around the, you know, the harm that could be caused by the nuclear weapons, and then just being killed in cold blood by that Nazi Doberman. Like,
yeah. I mean, I knew when I first saw that Doberman for the first time in the scientist's office, I'm like, why have they got a German scientist here? Like, and it was actually it was a double agent. Like, and he just killed 3 of them outright. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
And thing is, we you know, I was sort of thinking, I don't really want to be, you know, racist or anything like this, because I'm seeing this Doberman and I'm going, he's German, he's got to be a German spy, and he's sitting through the whole meeting and he's quiet and he's.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, there were plenty of German people who what's the word, who crossed over to the US, and particularly science and stuff. So yeah, like, he didn't want to assume.
And then he came.
So, I mean, in that way, it was a little bit typecasting to do that.
Yeah. But poignant because of it. Like, amazing. Yeah.
It was quite well done.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I mentioned Mecha Hitler before, but when it took that Metal Gear Solid sort of change in during the third act, I thought that was really, really quite cool. You know, you had those very Kojima-esque video things where the bad guy's pretty much explaining his whole thing, which is very Tarantino as well. But then that whole
monologue sort of thing,
that whole battle between Mecha Hitler and like the Project Manhattan team was just brilliant.
Well, that's the thing. Like, once they revealed all that additional tech with the mech suits and the
they felt very steampunk, which was kind of cool. Like, it did feel very World War II technology, but just amped up.
But I liked how they added a lot of dog touches in there with like the collars and
the dog tags, of course.
Yeah, the dog tags. Yeah, it was cool. It was for what it was for what it was, you know, and it wasn't a very long game, which was fine given the amount of stuff that they managed to fit in there in a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say I've been playing Masters of Spelling Dystopia for the last I think I got 53 hours or something like that. I put like 6 hours into this, and
yeah, well, look, exactly. Not everything can be Masters of Spelling Dystopia. So, yeah, for what it was, I think it was good. I'm gonna give it $7.5.
Yeah, I've got 3 frisbees and 4 collars. So
good collection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got another game for us?
No, that's the end of the episode. That's
okay,
it. We'll
so that's...
Didn't play anything else this week? No.
Of course I got more.
I wanted to talk about Summer Skate Shack.
Oh my God. I love that game.
Yeah, this was just... I really liked how lighthearted it was.
And it's actually... It's very fitting that we played this game because you've just been to LA and it kind of had that whole
it had that kind
LA
of vibe for
vibe.
it, kind of that Venice Beach, like skating down, like a bit of a 90s vibe to it. They weren't specific about it, and in fact there was sort of still the other mobile phones and stuff in there, but so it was more of a retro 90s sort of thing in modern day. But I really liked the combination they had of sort of the management of your skate shack. You're like selling skates, selling protective gear, selling drinks. You've got different things you can set up and that you can upgrade and get different stock in. But the main focus is really on the characters and the regulars who come by and who are skating by every day.
Yeah, and I really love the fact that when you first hear skate, you're thinking skateboarding, but it's like, no, this is all about
roller skates,
inline skates. You did have some boards that you could get, but the main focus was on any sort of skate, so that everyone could be involved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it told a good story. They obviously had the developers coming in who wanted to put up more condos on the beach, which were going to really wreck the vibe of. It's a classic kind of story, but particularly, that's sort of what gave it that more of that 90s vibe as well. Like it felt like a 90s movie story.
Yeah. You kind of had that guy that was kind of like the typical dean of the college sort of big developer guy that you could like pull pranks on and all this sort of stuff. And
yeah, it was sort of what's the word? It was collegiate in that way.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that scene where you had the 2 bikini clad women who had the skipping rope. And, they dragged it between them and they tripped him up and then they tied him up and that's how they sort of stopped him from creating the condos that time. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I liked how they kind of did it in that. It felt a bit like a 90s TV show in that way. Like they kind of had that episodic vibe to it. It wasn't strictly episodes, but like the way that the arcs of the story went, you'd get the people coming in, you'd have your little discussions, and then the developer would come in or come come by with potential with contractors and stuff,
and with another envelope of cash trying to pay you off and.
Exactly.
I'm like, this will be a quick game if I accept this. So no, I don't want to have this. And I thought that was really quite cool that they did give you the offer to like you could have a skate shack in the bottom of this condo. But the problem is, would people want to skate if you sold out?
That's it. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants your stuff if you've sold out to the man.
Yeah.
And plus, having those condos there would just ruin the whole vibe of that section of the beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants that.
I I did spend quite a bit of time doing the side missions with the kids that were doing the graffiti.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
So that...
Did you get to the end of that quest line?
I think I did. I know that all the concrete and all the pillars and stuff outside the skate shack were completely full. Yeah. But I'm not sure if that was actually the end.
I did like that line of quests. I liked how you sort of, because it started off and they're like tagging everywhere, just like gross,
single color
tags,
single color over some beautiful stuff, and it's like, oh
yeah. And so the fact that you, instead of just like calling the cops or whatever or trying to get rid of them, it's more, no, let's like
help ingratiate them into the...
Yeah, teach these kids what it means to be part of this community, and that graffiti in certain, when it's artistic can really be
can look amazing, but tagging
can
looks
look
shit.
Yeah.
And, I think that's why, this probably wouldn't be available in Australia, because I know that they didn't like Mark Echoes getting up. So
that classic
game, because graffiti obviously is just never acceptable, not even with an R rating. But
ridiculous.
It's such a small part of the game, but it was like when I think Venice Beach, I think graffiti, I think, skating, I'm thinking, sun-swept beaches and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's all
they
part
got that
of
vibe. They got that vibe down really well, and I liked how it did just feel very chilled out. Like you could tackle your different sort of storylines in whatever order you wanted.
Yeah, if you didn't want to talk to Kathy that day, you didn't have to. Like, she'd be there. She'd be there tomorrow. Just make sure that you talk to her every now and again, because otherwise, you don't want her getting depressed.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked the real sense of community it gave for all the different characters who came around and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I thought it was, something a bit different. And I liked that. I mean, we always like on this show, the sort of non-combat based gameplay, It's always good to see.
I really like Robert's storyline where, you could tell something was not going right. And then when you caught him actually shooting up drugs, and then you took him through all the rehab and all that sort of stuff. And when he came in and showed like his 90-day pin saying that, he hadn't touched drugs in 90 days, like that brought a tear to my eye. Like that was amazing. Like they changed
did that quite
life.
well. They did a really good job of staying away from it really feeling like an after school special and giving it some real pathos, I guess, some real emotions in there. And they built Robert up enough by the point that happened. Like, it didn't just feel like, oh, this character's here to have a drug story.
No. No, he was like, he was in the tutorial. He was helping you sort of learn about, the ropes and
well, and I think
who not to sell to, who not to rent to.
They did such a good job of just changing his demeanor across it as well, like fairly slowly. He's so upbeat and kind of outgoing in that tutorial level. And if you're not paying attention, like, you kind of don't notice that, oh, by the time you do get to that drug storyline, like, you're like, oh, yeah, like, he's changed. He's changed a lot.
So I'm going to give this 24 wheels, which with skates would be an 8. So there's 8 skates. Yeah.
24. Wait, 3 wheels?
Yeah.
On each skate, like inline skates?
Inline skates. Yeah.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, well, I'm going to give this 8.5 Roberts.
because of that one weird glitch that happened where he was cut in half for that whole scene. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. That's what made me think of it. That's how it got the extra half.
Yeah, exactly. What about Revenge of the Spatula?
I thought this one was. I thought this one was a bit dumb, but it had its It had its upsides.
Yeah, I suppose what I love is they went all in on the spatula and the powers that the spatulas could have.
Yeah.
The fact that, you're thinking revenge of the spatula, but no, there's multiple spatulas that you can collect, and it's like, it's a collect the whole set of the spatulas, and you can actually unlock the proper power of the spatulas.
I will say they did a good job of managing to add character to, the inanimate object that is a spatula. And enough that you could have so many different types. And it wasn't just, color swaps and pattern swaps. Like, these were different styles of flipping devices.
Yeah. And having food and, burger-based enemies was pretty good, I thought. Being able to
and the
flip
fact
them.
that so much of it was this flip-based gameplay. Like, that was sort of your main verb, was to flip them and have them, if you do it correctly, land on either each other or on the environmental hazards. The grills that were around and the skewers. And
I've got to say, the environment artists must have had a field day with this game.
Oh, God, yeah.
They went absolutely insane. Just, as you said, grills and skewers everywhere. I really did like the subtle nods to, like, a movie that probably no one has ever seen, which is Weird Al Yankovic's, like, video from UHF in Australia or UHF in like America, where you actually had Spatula City, and if you listen closely, you could hear the whole Spatula City ad from UHF.
I guess if you're making a spatula based game, you probably need to find as much spatula related content as you can. So but yes, I think there are probably relatively few people who would have picked that up.
Yeah. I've got to say, Weird Al, he should have produced this game. Like, you could tell that they were really bad rips of like an old VHS copy, rather than, like, had they just gone to him. He's a pretty good guy. They would have done it. They would have done a deal.
Still got the master sound effects from the 30-plus-year-old movie.
Well, here's the thing: Spatula City and all this sort of stuff is on his album from the time. Like, they put a whole heap of those sort of things in there. They could have just ripped it from there, but no, they grabbed it from the VHS. I could tell it was VHS because there was that hiss in the background.
You got good ears, Trevor. You got good ears.
I've got a good set of headphones, sponsored by Audio Technica.
Oh, wish. Send us stuff, Audio Technica. That'd be great.
I'm not currently using an Audio Technica mic, so maybe I won't say that.
No, it just means that they need to win you over. No, but back to sort of the gameplay and stuff. I really liked the different combos you could get, particularly with the skewers. Like, if you alternated between, like, a meat-based and a vegetable-based
skewer combos, yeah,
enemy and that sort of thing. The skewer combos are really cool. Having knives and forks around and like flipping them onto those and seeing them just like get consumed.
Yeah, and can we talk about the big mouth boss? Like, yeah. I mean, all you had to do was satiate the boss. It wasn't attacking the boss or anything like that. It was literally flipping enough burgers and like pancakes and shit into the mouth to satiate it. Otherwise, you'd drown in saliva. Like,
but it was tough.
It was
tough. Yeah, and with that saliva, it's sort of creating this like real slippery areas and stuff.
Yeah,
you had to, you really had to make those move sequences work for you to get the directional flips, in the right direction.
I really did enjoy some of the powers that we had in there, like obviously the flipping power, which is just bog standard for it. But the fact that there was, like, one of the spatulas could actually heat up to super high levels to actually scald and burn and
sear it. Give it a nice sear.
Yep.
Yeah, I liked the non-stick power up the most, to really just get that extra extra boost behind your flips.
And it also meant that you didn't have to spend, like, minutes in that cleanup game. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Where you had to get the scourer out, and every time that you're doing with the scourer, you're like making little marks, which are just they're
just making it worse.
It's gonna make it worse.
It's not gonna slide under there as nicely next time.
But you got to be very careful with the non-stick because it's not infallible. Like, you can actually scratch the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
I think they must have taken some of the damage mechanics from, like, Dark Souls 2, because sometimes I felt like the spatulas just wore down so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely based that on the material of whatever spatula you were using at the time, but they all were... It was a bit much how much they'd run down, and you had to, like, go and refurbish.
I mean, my starting spatula was just a nub by the end. Like, I couldn't get rid of it. I loved it so much.
Yeah, then you had to basically, like, skewer the... skewer them
it
instead
was
of
the
flipping
fact
them.
that they made you name it. Like,
what did you name your first spatula?
Spatty.
Spatty the spatula.
Spatty spatula.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But I love Spatty.
We all love Spatty.
What'd you name yours?
Bob.
Oh. Going with a human name for a spatula, that's just... That's so wrong. Mean, it's so demeaning.
It's demeaning to give them a name that is more anthropomorphic. I think it's respectful and showing that, yes, I do think of them as a real person.
So did you use Bob much throughout the game?
Look, I'll be honest. I flipped Bob off to the side pretty quickly. I don't know. Did they randomize? Because mine was like he was plastic. Like, he wasn't even a nice steel or
but Spatty the
stainless steel.
Spatty the plastic spatula. He was my friend.
He started like melting. Like, the end of him got all stubby.
That's how we ended up at a nub. But
yeah,
I wasn't going to throw him away because
I didn't use him.
There was the whole quest line, about bringing him back to his parents and all this sort of stuff. Like, you're not telling me that you missed out on all that extra content.
Well, I didn't do that quest line because I had thrown him away. But there is like a scene where he shows back up and he's like,
he flips you off, does he? Or flip you the bird. I broke Ben.
That was good. He did flip me off. And yeah, it was a good scene. It was a good scene. I'm glad actually that I threw away just so I could see that scene.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a wonderful pun on the whole game, and why wouldn't you want to see that? So anyway, I think I'm going to give it probably a 6 flips.
Okay, 6 flips. Look, I really enjoyed it. I think I might give it 7 burgers.
Yeah,
just on flipping onto a grill. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. What's your next game? Like,
my next game that we played this one multiplayer together. Grimy Mountain Climber Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
this was
grimy is definitely an adjective.
Yeah, you got pretty messy. But I mean, and it's funny that they put that in the title because it was more just an aesthetic thing. Like, they didn't really bring that in as a gameplay mechanic. But definitely by the time you get high up in these mountains, especially if you've done, what we were doing, where you're really like screwing with each other and pushing each other off ledges and
cutting your rope and
yeah, you get pretty grimy, you get pretty messy. But yeah, this was essentially like a competitive multiplayer mountain climbing game, where you just you do get kind of a bunch of interesting tools to mess with your competitors. I liked that it was. I liked that if you like that, it wasn't easy to just find the other players.
No, I mean the fact that there was no map, yet it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mountain; it was a mountain range. Like,
yeah. So you really have to. This is not an arcadey sort of thing where you might think of just like fast action. You know, everyone's on the screen at once or whatever. No, this is. You know, third person, you're having to look out and find the other players by, you know, when they might light a fire halfway up, or the glint off their carabiner, or just falling. I mean, the biggest thing that gives away is just falling rocks, falling dirt, falling. You know,
yeah. I didn't
disturbing.
realize it for so long, but I was literally right underneath you for like. You know, half of my climb.
Yes,
I'm like,
that was
where are all these rocks coming from? I look up, like I'm looking out to the side and all this sort of stuff, and I'm like, I literally spawned just beneath you, and we'd been climbing and looking around for ages and not being.
That was good. That was good. I think I knew you were there a bit long. I'd been unfortunately I didn't find like a big enough rock on a ledge soon enough. I was hoping that you wouldn't have seen me and I'd just drop one down. Just pull it down with your climbing axe, with my climbing axe, and just drop it on your head. And
I think that's what I liked about the game, the fact that because there was no map, because there was only environmental clues as to where other people were, you kind of just you had to explore. You had to try different things out, and
it will give an interesting mix of sort of that solitary gameplay, and it was challenging just the climbing stuff. Like you had to put your connections in the right place. Like if you do the wrong thing, you can fall and potentially die. I mean, you
judging your handholds as you're going, and the fact that you did actually have like the two triggers were for your legs, and you had to sort of keep them held, and then your two bumpers were all about the hands, about you could move one onto the next one and move one up to here, and it was quite intuitive. Like it didn't feel like you were doing co-op or something like that, but that you were still really had a lot of control over each limb and how that worked. You know what I'm just realizing now, actually, it gave me a very what's the fucking PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds?
What's the PUBG Battleground? Right, yeah, PUBG. I knew like completely. It's been so long since that's been relevant. But that's the sort of vibe it gave me, because of course you're racing to the highest mountain, so which there is only one of. So you're eventually going to get closer
and
to
closer
the other people.
And closer. Yep.
But, in the meantime, you've got sort of somewhat solitary gameplay where you may or may not run across someone, but basically your chances get higher and higher as you play and get closer to that main peak. Yeah, and being able to ransack, the different base camps and that sort of stuff. Well, that's it. Yeah, if you find the current base camp of someone, or just what they've left behind, like if it is their current base camp, they might die and respawn back there and find that all their shit's gone. Especially because hooks and all those different things for rock climbing, they're limited supplies. So sometimes you had to climb 30, 40 meters, and then you'd put another hook in place. If you fell at any of those times, you're incredibly grimy, and you may have even died. Like, yeah. Yes. I mean, I say grimy, but you're incredibly bloody as well. Like, and that just seeps in, and then you can get sepsis, and that's the worst condition that you can get in the game. See, I thought the fact that they added getting sepsis and getting diseased and stuff for the time frame, I felt like that was maybe a little bit too far. I felt like that added a layer of frustration that perhaps wasn't needed. I mean, I guess it kind of gave them the reason to have some of the medical supplies and stuff. But I've got to say, don't try to speedrun the game, because I think they've realized that just getting to the top of the summit isn't a great idea, because obviously the higher that you get, the colder it gets. Yeah. Well, frostbite starts setting in, and what my guy lost fingers.
Like, he lost fingers and fell off the mountain. Like,
that was another one that, look, not as bad as the sepsis. I can see why they did it, because it added some interesting gameplay mechanics. Because then when you are controlling each limb, and you know that they're at varying levels of frostbitten, so they're not going to, have the strength to hold on.
And also, the fact that there's not as much oxygen up there means that the stamina meter has actually kind of shrunk as you got up there, because you don't have as much stamina anymore.
Yeah, yeah. But there is something to be said for trying to get there as fast as possible, because working with the frostbite and working with the low oxygen while there are other people also trying to pull you down or sabotage you in different ways, it was stressful. Those last few minutes, just like a PUBG game.
Yeah. Especially when they're up on the summit and they're throwing down small little things that all of a sudden start gaining snow and shit, because of course the top of the mountain has lots of snow.
That was a cool mechanic, actually. Yeah. And
you got this huge fucking snowball by the time it's down the bottom. I swear they just chucked a pebble and now they've got this massive fucking snowball coming right at me. Fuck.
Yeah, you had to really take note of sort of where the little overhangs were, and if there weren't enough, get a good swing going and get your timing right, because, yeah. I
mean, in the earlier levels, a rolling stone gathered no moss, but
but gather snow.
Go to the snow. Yeah. It's like Rolling Stone gathers a fuck ton of snow, and I think whoever made up that original proverb they missed out the second part of.
I did think it was a little bit ridiculous, but it gave it a little bit of character. That if you did get hit by that snowball and get brought down the hill, that when you do kind of event, when you hit something that stops you, you end up just there, kind of like a snowman.
Yeah, I mean,
in the snow with
they put the three coal things in the carrot and more coal, and
very
more
classic, very classic.
The scarf
snowman.
was a nice touch.
Yes. Yeah. So and I liked. Did you notice even the snowman scarf followed the color scheme of your character creation?
Yes, I thought that was really cool.
That was a nice little touch.
I don't know where all the coal came from though, because.
Well, I think that's where it was sort of a bit. Yeah,
because when you wanted coal to help you start a fire so that you could actually survive the cold nights, you couldn't find shit. But somehow a fucking snowman gets it automatically. That really bothered me.
maybe they were just stones, Trevor.
So I'm going to give this 6 pieces of coal that I never fucking found.
I'm going to give it 8 carabiners. I was impressed.
Nice. Yeah. Our last actual main game for tonight before we do our lightning round. Summer Tricycle Summit.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of summits, yeah.
Yeah.
A bit different, of course.
Very, very different. The fact that the lead character in this was literally a 4 or 5 year old, riding a tricycle, and, it was just about their summer and trying to climb that hill.
Well, and trying to not just trying to climb it, but then having the courage
with the tricycle, and then going down again.
Exactly, having the courage to then go down that big hill.
And of course, it was. Oh yeah, go. Sorry,
I was just going to say I loved some of the camera work and essentially the cinematography in this game of the way that you'd get to the top of that summit and your field of vision would change. It gave you that real vertigo kind of sense of how big this seems to a toddler.
It was the whole thing of bringing the camera and changing the focus,
changing your focal length and stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool. Obviously, it was all set up at the very start of the game. Your big brother had pushed you down, that hill.
Yeah.
And on your tricycle, obviously it was before the start of the game, so maybe 3, and that was obviously in your mind and kept on flashing back to that, which is really quite good.
Trauma that you'd experienced, yeah.
But I thought, it was kind of weird to have those mechanics of having to actually control each foot as you're on the tricycle, trying to get that rhythm
going. Look, it was a little bit unusual, but I felt like did give you that sense, because it was almost like a rhythm game then, because if you got out of sync as you sped up, like you'd turn, or you'd start to wobble, you wouldn't be able to keep it up.
Yeah.
And it did really give that sense of going fast down a hill.
Yeah. It really would have been good if they matched the music to the speed that you needed to be doing it, because when you're hearing the beat of the music and then your tricycle isn't at that beat, it kind of felt off.
Yeah.
It would have been good. I mean, there was a perfect song. I can't remember what band did it. It sort of sounds like there's like this riding down a hill or something like that. I know.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. It's sort of... It gives you like...
Yeah. Something about a mountain and being defiant or something like that. So
we'll never know.
We'll never know. But that would have been good in that scene. But just the fact that every single time I went up that hill, they'd play that same beat that never sped up or anything like that, and it was like, oh god, my head's just feeling that beat. And
that did feel like a missed opportunity to really give that sense of, like, to go along with the controls and the visuals, to really give that sense of being out of control going down a hill on a tricycle. Which, as we, I feel like that's a universal experience. We've all tried it. We've all been there.
It did feel very at home to me because, I mean, the name of the hill was Xena Grove, and around in Mooroolbark there is a really high, like...
That was a weird coincidence.
Yeah, really high, like, hill with a road on it called Xena Grove.
I wonder if they grew up. Maybe someone on the team.
I know,
grew
from what I can tell,
Australian?
like, it was a Holland developer or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess they have one there too.
Yeah. But that really brought it back home for me, like, the fact that there was another way up to the hill, like, so you didn't have to just go up that...
Yeah, we didn't just go up the steep...
the steep part.
Could go. Yeah.
But then... the DLC where they had the whole thing about the cut breaks, that was harrowing. Like,
well, that was weird as well, because I didn't think tricycles even had, like, breaks that you could cut.
Yeah, but
I guess it was...
It was one of these things that...
It was sort of the way that they... Because, I mean, the whole game, obviously it's set with these toddlers, but it's sort of... They portrayed them as older, as... In sort of that ironic way.
I mean, I say DLC, but it wasn't really downloadable content. It was just unlocked in the game. I think it was
right,
just...
yeah, it sort of wasn't part of the main story initially. But
yeah, it was just like it was a weird sort of like prologue to the whole thing that, hey, you go down this next time and your brakes were cut, or, you...
Disconnected in some way.
Disconnected in some way, so that basically you tried stopping your feet, but the wheels kept on turning. Like,
yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, they're not connected to the wheel anymore. And yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then you had that whole hospital scene that was, a little bit sad.
Yeah, they did that well. And look, and we haven't talked about sort of the characters all that much, and your friends and stuff. But, by that point, you had developed these relationships with the other toddlers. You kind of had your little crew.
Yeah. Albert and the gang, yep. That was...
Yeah, for them to all, like, show up at the hospital.
Yeah, with get well cards, which, I mean, you could tell that they spent a bit of time, working out what you'd actually done throughout the game. So, because they did make mention in the card of some of your achievements throughout the game.
Yeah, that was a cool little touch.
Yeah.
I think even if you'd got more achievements in the game, there were like more cards.
Yeah, and definitely more people to sign your cast, because they all came down to sign that cast. But it was kind of weird that the rest of the game was just like a hospital mystery. But that's what happens.
Yeah, they did pivot a little bit there.
It was just in the DLC though. Well, again, it was the prologue.
But for them to go to a completely different gameplay style was an interesting choice.
It actually kind of felt Rear Window. like, because they'd broken their legs and they were sort of, instead of being on a tricycle, they were now in a wheelchair with the one leg.
Yeah, I guess that was one way that they managed to sort of keep the mechanics, that instead of doing each foot on the pedals, it was each hand in the wheelchair. Yeah, that was good. So I think it did feel just a little bit like, hey, we've got this, this game with these vehicle mechanics. Let's just do something completely different with it.
Yeah.
While still being able to, reuse a bunch of stuff. So that was cool.
And then, of course, the end of the DLC, or the prologue, where you're up the top in your wheelchair and you let it go again and you just dancing the grove again. It was a lot of fun.
It was cool.
Lightning round.
Yeah. Right, so this is where because we don't always play games together. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we bring up the games.
Sorry. How many broken legs did you give that last one?
Look, I was going to give it 8, but that weird DLC or the weird unlockable prologue did actually put me off a little bit. I would have preferred they stuck with the main, so down to 7.
Yeah. Okay. I did actually give it an 8. Right. Even though it did get cut down from the audio that got out of sync with the thing, but they did have an audio menu where you could just turn down the music, so that's what got it back its point. So
perfect.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Lightning round. So these are games that we've each played. The other person didn't play necessarily, so we sort of just go quickly through other games we've been playing.
You go first.
So Spooky Fishing Mania was pretty cool.
Cool, nice.
It's essentially a ghost-based fishing game where you play a skeleton, funnily enough, on the edge of a dock, and you're catching ghost fish. But really cool graphics, like really cool translucent water and seeing the sort of emissive ghost fish underneath. And yeah, a really kind of a connection between, you're catching the ghosts of the fish that the human fisherman caught during the day, and there's sort of this back and forth. So it's cool. Was
it related to Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion, which is a game that's actually on Steam?
It might have been. I haven't played that. Like, maybe it's a friend. Like maybe it's a series. Yeah, maybe.
Holy Pogo Plus.
Okay.
I thought that was, weird to sort of have a priest going around on a pogo stick, and it just. And this was the Plus edition, so this is the re-release that that they did, and it was fun to see that this priest who had decided that he wasn't going to be part of the wasn't going to be part of the priesthood anymore, and just travel across Australia on a pogo stick.
Oh, so it's actually like sort of relatively serious in tone. Huh.
Yeah. It was kind of cool. You got to talk to a lot of people and sort of find out the story as to, why he didn't want to be a priest anymore, and yeah.
And then he just pogoes away.
He pogoed away.
Cool. I played a bit of MC Escher's Bedtime.
Oh, yes. I'd seen that, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, it does some really cool things with non-Euclidean geometry, and it's basically, it's sort of supposed to be a bedtime like story almost, or like a calming down, going to bed experience, but you walk up the stairs. And you walk up the stairs, 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 and you realize that it's an endless staircase, and then you eventually you go into the room and the bed's on the wall, and it's but done in a very impressive way. Yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. I nearly didn't download this game because I thought Elmo's Monster Truck Carnage was about the Sesame Street character Elmo, and I'm like, it was just. Obviously, the developer's name is Elmo, and he wanted to call this game, his Monster Truck Carnage, and it was a really, really kind of cool Carmageddon style game, but you're in a monster truck and you're literally crushing cars and crushing zombies and just
cool.
having a lot of fun. And
it's been a while since I've played a good just like destructive for the sake of being destructive kind of card game like that.
I mean,
cool.
there was a little bit of a story.
Yeah.
Not too much to write home about. But it was just good, clean fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
College Karate Chronicles.
Oh.
I think I grabbed it just because of that great alliteration in the name. But it was kind of a cool story, a cool mix between, sort of the classic college, graphic, like visual novel sort of thing.
Yeah.
But with some real, like, good sort of martial arts karate gameplay kind of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked it.
Screaming Stick 2000. I thought that was... I don't know what I thought it was going to be when I went into it. I thought maybe they're going to, like... One of the things I had to enable was a microphone and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, do I have to control this by screaming into a mic? And it's like, no, they wanted like the mic for like multiplayer mode, which I mean, It's a game from the 2000s, so no one was really playing it online. But it's just about who can hold the screaming stick longest. And given that there was no one there and it was a mainly multiplayer game, it was kind of, But the screaming stick was actually, quite nice and like nicely rendered. It had a lot of polygons for a 2000-year-old game.
Yeah, cool.
22-year-old game, yeah.
All right, I think my last one of the night, and I'm not usually into sports games, but this is sort of a little bit different. Hardcore mech football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's this very violent version of, and again, it's American football style, so I barely knew the rules, but you kind of don't even need to because it mostly just becomes, smashing into and attacking the other mechs. But, you still have to do stuff with the ball. And I mean, really, it wasn't that much different from real American football because they're always smashing into each other anyway.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It looked cool. I loved the sound effects in this, actually. Like the screech and clatter of metal on metal was cool.
And the last one that I had was Amazon Amish in the Salad Kingdom. I really, really enjoyed this game. It felt like a real throwback to the 90s style platformer games, like a Commander
like
King
Jill
sort of
of
thing.
the Jungle or something.
Yeah, Jill of the Jungle, all that sort of stuff. Amazon Amish was he was like part of the Amish community. He went out on Rumspringa and ended up working at an Amazon factory, and then left there because like he realized that this is even worse than having no technology but like being oppressed. And so he's gone out and he's exploring all the different parts of the world because he got his injury payment from Amazon from when he had his accident, and now he just travels around the world. And this time he went to the Salad Kingdom, and it's kind of weird. It kind of feels like they took our whole vegetable,
Starch Wars
stuff and just made this is all the leafy vegetables and all that sort of stuff living in this beautiful kingdom. And yeah, there were some evil potatoes that were coming in and sort of attacking the Salad Kingdom. So, and Amazon Amish had to help save the Salad Kingdom, and it was really harrowing journey. So I recommend it.
I'll have to check that one out. And I mean, I guess that's just a case of, parallel thinking with the whole potatoes versus leaf vegetables, but that's cool.
Go see like the first episode that we ever did with Brendan White back in like the early like within the first 50 episodes, and that's where Starch Wars come from. And we've gone
back to that well a few times.
And the fact that someone else has sort of made that's amazing.
It's pretty cool. All right, so I think that brings us to the end of our episode tonight. If you'd like to find us online and all of our previous episodes, you can go to podchaser.com/bitstorm. Leave us a review there. We'd love to hear what you thought of this episode or any of our previous episodes.
Go listen to Starch Wars with Brendan White and review that one.
Yeah.
That's fine. If you like the music that we play at the start and end, that's the song Meant to Find Stuff of the album Containment Failure. It contains this awesome bit where it's like a bike going down a hill in the middle.
That's a weird thing to bring up.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's by the band Kuridas. It's called Meant to Find. Go search it it's on Bandcamp. You can download it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott. And, oh, look out, that Spatula is flipping you the bird.